He mentioned a little bit about kendo, didn't he? Swinging a bamboo sword in kendo and swinging these real katana are completely different techniques.
I wouldn't say they're completely different. I would say that both can be applied to use with the steel katana. It just depends on which situation and which context. Kendo was developed from the style of Hokushin Ito-ryu, which is a dueling style, which did emerge later on in the Muromachi period.
The katana that he's holding onto right now doesn't look like it's made in the traditional katana style.
That's because it isn't. This is a sparring-friendly katana. It has to be made through a specific type of flexible steel, and it has to have, obviously, a blunt edge and a rounded tip. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Ghost of the Dojo, and I make martial arts related content. I also like to release some fun stuff every now and then too. If you like this type of stuff, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. If you haven't seen his channel already, I would highly suggest you go and visit Let's Ask Shogo. He has excellent guides on Iaido and Kenjutsu, as well as insights on Japanese culture. Check out his page and give him a follow.
They told me there's an amazing channel called Sellsword Arts.
Sellsword Arts has a fantastic channel if you want to learn anything in regards to practical swordsmanship and practical applications in film, TV, video games. Please go check it out and subscribe.
The thing that you do need to understand before watching this video is that I have zero experience and knowledge about the longswords or like European weapons.
Well, lucky for you, Shogo, I do train in longsword as well.
It was folded 1,000 times to make it strong.
Katana versus longsword.
Steel was found in a bog. The longsword is the height of technology.
Ah, the memes. Yeah, that's the fairy tale that people always tout, right? The katana was folded 1,000 times. Glorious Nippon steel. It could cut through a tank. And then, you know, the biggest opponents of it say that the steel is pig iron found in a bog. Terrible quality steel. It's a back and forth argument that's been going on since the dawn of time.
Katana versus longsword, it's really a debate that doesn't have an answer. It depends on the situation, what kind of armor you're wearing, the level of that person, the level of each sword, and so on and so forth. It's impossible to, you know, generalize completely the katana and the longsword and say which one is stronger.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with that. There's no real way to go and say which one is better. That's really subjective, you know? Just like Shogo explained, there's different contexts to a fight, and there's always going to be different levels of skills between those two fighters, right? But I would say, to add to that, you can go into functional differences for somebody who does use both weapons, like yours truly.
Whereas if he does that here, boom, super easy. Just turn it down. Just use it normally. Just use it normally.
Just use it normally. Yeah, I completely agree. Honestly, if somebody can prove me otherwise, please do show. But in every type of sparring context, I haven't found a use for this reverse grip either. And I mean, as cool as it might look in anime, there's really very little practical application that I've found, especially in just a one-on-one duel where, you know, both weapons are drawn and it's ready, you ready, go, fight. I don't see much optimization, but please, if anybody's out there, please step forward. I'd love to see it. I will say, however, in knife fighting or the use of daggers or very short swords, it is possible to have some applications, but largely it is like Sellsword Arts described. It is to close in, have a grappling mechanism so that you can trap and lock onto somebody with that blade.
For example, there are kata where it starts from drawing the katana with a reverse hand and using it this way to block a leg attack, for example, using it the side of the sword, and then flipping it over to cut him.
That's interesting, and I am curious because there is a new type of sparring that does involve the art of drawing from the sheath. So if there is an application like this from drawing, then that's something that I would certainly like to look into. I'm actually relatively new to iaijutsu or batojutsu in relation to, you know, my context of sparring. The context for dueling 99% of the time is when the sword is already drawn very few times do I actually start sparring from the draw. So that's something interesting and worthwhile to look into.
While not as efficient as the katana at the cut, its double-sided nature means that it has more options in combat, and its long tapered point means it's much more efficient at thrusting.
Absolutely.
With the further back weight, double edges, and longer point, the longsword is faster and more maneuverable than the katana.
I wanted to add a little bit more nuance in saying that overall, I would say yes, I agree with Sellsword Arts that the longsword is maneuverable and faster overall than the katana. That doesn't mean that there aren't cases where the katana doesn't have an advantage. Most certainly it does, especially in terms of cutting and turning the direction or the angle of the blade in terms of adjusting your attacks. You do have a faster action because you have heavier weight directed towards the front. You have a faster cut as well as a faster change in angle. Three things to really keep in mind when comparing these two are the weight distribution, the cross guard, and the second edge. Also, I guess as a bonus, you could also say the weapon size and weight, because the katana does have a tendency to be shorter than the longsword. Because the katana is top heavy, it does make the cut slightly faster. It's not a staggering difference, but it is a difference in the end. The crossguard really comes into play when you're repeatedly cutting using the same edge. Notice that after you cut and you recover your sword using the same edge, you're going to have a risk of that crossguard getting in the way. Doing the same thing with a katana, you would not have that same obstacle, and you would be able to go and change angles. This all changes when you turn 180 degrees to the other side. Not only do you not have a second edge on the katana, weight distribution will also make it feel more awkward to do. This is actually one of the most prolific techniques done with a longsword, and it was very big on the competition scene for quite some time. It's known as the zwerkow. You start with the thumb above the crossguard, you turn, and you cut with the edge that's actually closest to you. Notice that you can turn around immediately and attack the exact opposite side using the second edge, and you can attack a second time very quickly. And this is an advantage that the katana does not have. After everything's said and done, while the katana is not meant ideally for stabbing, almost half of the techniques that I use in sparring are thrust attacks. You do have to keep a variety of techniques available when you're in combat. The nature of combat is to not be predictable. If you end up training with a longsword for quite some time, and you move immediately to using a standard size sparring katana, that katana is going to feel light as a feather. That sword is an entire pound lighter than a longsword. And a 1 pound weight difference is massive when you're talking about controlling a blade.
I need to say that I do not know anything about the longsword, so I can't comment so much about what he's saying in the video.
That's okay, Shogo, that's why you got me.